Isaiah, what's on your mind, man? You look worried.
It's messed up, bro. Did you hear what they did?
What do they do?
They are ruining Drake! They're getting his voice, running some algorithm against it, making some training data to output something that's not.
Wait, slow down. You're getting a little ahead of yourself. What are you talking about, man?
They're making Drake say things he never said.
Throughout the history of recorded music, technology has paved the way for artists to create new and innovative ideas. And in the modern music landscape, the barrier of entry for creating music has been drastically reduced, thanks to the advent of laptops and mobile digital devices. And from the point of view of the listener, apps such as Spotify and Apple Music have made being able to listen to music and find new artists as easy as it's ever been before. The increase of technology within music and art as a whole has raised new ethical concerns with use cases of these technologies. To understand the ethical implications of AI, I would first like to discuss the ethical implications of a similar case that has already happened with technology, that being with sampling. So what is sampling? Sampling is the act of taking a section of one song and using it within your song. Sampling was popularized in the 80s and 90s, and from then onward they became a very important part of modern popular music. Many people back then would argue that sampling music was a form of stealing from others and was without creative merit. Nowadays, the sentiment towards sampling is that it is a very important part of modern music, and to dismiss sampling as an inauthentic form of music is to dismiss entire genres of music entirely, such as hip-hop and electronic music. We have learned to live with art that is sampled, and with art that is created solely with analog or acoustic instruments as well. If a sample transforms a piece of existing art and recontextualizes it within a new work, it falls within fair creative use according to most musicians. In other words, what Heidegger would consider thinking is what most musicians consider fair use. Of course, with sampling, there are limitations. You are not allowed to sample someone else's work without permission. If the person or group you are sampling does not like your use of their work, they can deny you the privilege of being able to release that body of work for profit. In making music, there are no direct rules, but in profiting off of music, there are many rules. In short, the ethical conclusion that the sampling discussion has reached is that if a producer is transforming the sample in a creative way, then it's considered morally okay. So this begs the question, what does all this have to do with AI? Well, a lot of the discussion regarding AI in today's music landscape is actually very similar to the discussion about sampling. People have asked, oh, is sampling stealing? Does sampling transform the source material? Is it ethical? Is this okay? Does this take jobs away from musicians and drummers and whatnot? People ask the same thing about AI. People ask if AI steals from artists or transforms the source material, or if it's okay. Can we do anything to stop it? Though these questions have been asked before, the unique nature of how AI is used is what complicates this issue further. So then, how is AI being used within music? Well, the most common form of AI being used inside of music is through a concept called vocal replacement AI. For an example of vocal replacement AI, I would like to show you an example of Patrick Star singing Thriller. This technology is able to replicate the exact nuances of someone's voice if done correctly. However, there are potentially some very morally dubious use cases of these technologies that have been used over the last couple of years. The most popular example of vocal replacement AI being used today is a song created by Ghostwriter. Ghostwriter is a producer who used an AI model of Drake and The Weeknd in order to create a song called Heart on My Sleeve.
With my ex like Selena, the flex, bumping Justin Bieber.
Drake's response to this seems that he does not seem to enjoy AI very much. It almost reads like he is threatening AI. So what does this mean for artists from an ethical standpoint? If you use a more popular artist's voice to make your song more popular, is this okay? Would people care about Heart on My Sleeve if it wasn't Drake and The Weeknd? There is an argument to be made that you are using their likeness to create something that people want, but it isn't truly yours, and you profit on their notoriety and you gain popularity because of this. Drake and The Weeknd didn't consent to the making of Heart on My Sleeve, yet the person still made it, they blew up, and people associate the song with Drake and The Weeknd and not necessarily Ghostwriter. In other words, they use their likeness to their advantage. VR AI goes against what kind of art the artist wants to create, in a way that does not necessarily transform their original work. It instead takes their work and aggregates it, and then spits out a copy of that artist. This act alone does not constitute creative merit, and is therefore arguably unethical use of someone's work. Now, it is clear that the original creator of this piece of music did not have malicious intent. In an interview with Billboard, Ghostwriter has gone on record to say that he wants to help songwriters gain a new stream of revenue, and that he wants to shine a light for songwriters and is hopeful for a world where artists can license out their voice, and that these new songs would be transparent that they were AI. For example, he posited that we could have Drake, and then in the little subliner, we could have Drake AI. AI is only improving with time, and it will eventually get to a point where it will be able to perfectly mimic someone else's voice given a large enough data set. But even that might be a vector that will be improved on in the future. An average person at best will be able to create fun songs that are generally harmless, much like Ghostwriter, regardless of what the artist thinks. But if a corporation such as a music label or streaming platform was able to harness this technology, the value of an artist could decline even further. Imagine a world where a label could have a standardized contractual obligation with an artist, where they are allowed to use any and all aspects of their voice recorded during a contract for an album, so that once the contract expires, they are still able to make money off that artist, as well as being able to create their own AI versions of that artist's songs that were recorded in that time period. This scenario is actually already happening with posthumous album releases, where labels are putting out records that artists who are deceased have no say in. A label could potentially profit off an artist forever within AI. They could just keep generating music as opposed to having a finite supply of records that an artist will leave behind after they pass away. We know that labels, or at least streaming platforms, are trying to do something like this because Spotify in 2021 was looking to hire new AI engineers in order to develop novel technologies for AI-assisted music creation. End quote. In more recent interviews with Spotify employees seem to imply that the company is developing creator tools for artists to show how artists can optimize their songs to, and I quote, manipulate their audience in a very precise way. End quote. With this knowledge, it seems that AI seems to only take from artists without really giving back. If AI is devaluing artists, could AI maybe add value to artists, or maybe add value to music as a whole? The nature of AI in this application is that it will take the information of an artist just to produce something that is supposed to be identical to the artist that it's copying. This is contrast with sampling, where there is creative merit in recontextualizing the original body of work into something new. It does have the same issue of consent, where the original creator of a work may not necessarily consent to a sample, much like how an artist might not consent to being turned into an AI model. A sample, however, is understood to not necessarily be that artist, whereas an AI version of an artist is understood to be that artist. When you create an AI model of an artist, you want to emulate them and replicate them as best as possible. People credit Ghostwriter for creating Heart on My Sleeve, but mostly people associate it to be both Drake and The Weeknd. Now, even though the future of AI in music seems quite grim, what I'm painting is not necessarily the whole picture. There is somewhat of a silver lining to all of this. AI has been able to recover lost records and help artists create meaningful bodies of work. For example, the Beatles' new and final song, Now and Then, was released due to the fact that they were able to extract John Lennon's vocals from the original demo of the song from the piano part that was also in the audio. They were also able to add George Harrison's guitar parts from the mid-90s and new elements from Ringo and Paul today. The final Beatles record would have never seen the light of day, and thanks to AI, the Beatles are able to have a final send-off record for millions of people to enjoy. So what does this mean for both listeners and musicians alike? AI technology within music is just in its infancy, and yet it has already begun to shake the industry to its core. The debate between those who believe that AI-generated music will become a core part of music and those who believe it shouldn't extends the arguments between humanists and transhumanists that Koppelberg paints in his hit book, AI Ethics, a book about ethics and AI. So should we embrace technology or should we reject it? Regardless of how we feel, AI is bound to be a part of music in a meaningful way, much like the technologies before it, such as samplers, synthesizers, etc. All we can do is wait and see how this new technology will impact the music industry and landscape as a whole. I'm Rohan Mangala. Our editor is Isaiah Munoz. Thanks for watching.
Got these girls on my neck, got these girls on my track. Like Selena, baby, on my Gina, baby, yeah. She thinking we'll Lambo for a drive.